Jonathan Larson was an American composer and playwright noted for exploring the serious social issues of multiculturalism, addiction, and homophobia in his work. Typical examples of his use of these themes are found in his works, Rent and Tick, Tick, Boom. He received 3 posthumous Tony Awards and a posthumous Pulitzer Prize for drama for the rock musical Rent. Early years: Larson was born to Jewish parents, Alan and Nanette Larson, in White Plains, New York. He was exposed to the performing arts, especially music and theater, from an early age, as he played the trumpet, tuba, sang in his school's choir, and took formal piano lessons. His early musical influences were his favorite rock musicians such as Elton John, The Beatles, The Doors, The Who, and Billy Joel, as well as the classic composers of musical theater, especially Stephen Sondheim. Larson was also involved in acting in high school, performing in lead roles in various productions at White Plains High School. Larson attended Adelphi University in Garden City, New York with a 4-year scholarship as an acting academic major, in addition to performing in numerous plays and musical theater. During his college years, he began music composition, composing music first for small student productions, called cabarets, and later the score to a musical entitled Libro de Buen Ama, written by the department head, Jacques Burdick. Burdick functioned as Larson's mentor during his college education. After graduating with a Bachelor of Fine Arts, Larson participated in a summer stock theater program at the Barn Theater in Augusta, Michigan as a piano player, which resulted in his earning an equity card for membership in the Actors Equity Association. Larson moved to a loft with no heat on the 5th floor of a building at the corner of Greenwich Street and Spring Street in Lower Manhattan, where he lived with various roommates, among them Greg Beals, a journalist for Newsweek magazine and the brother of actress Jennifer Beals, and James Clooney, now a creative director at advertising agency BBDO. For about 10 years Larson worked as a waiter at the Moondance Diner during weekends, and worked on composing and writing musicals during the weekdays. At the diner Larson later met Jesse L. Martin, who was his waiting trainee and later would perform the role of Tom Collins in the original cast of Larson's Rent. Larson and his roommates lived in harsh conditions with little money or property. Career: before composing and writing the musical Rent, his most popular and well-known work, Jonathan Larson wrote a variety of early theatrical pieces, with varying degrees of success and production. Among his early creative works is Sacra Mora Lenority, his first musical which was co-written with David Glenn Armstrong, and originally staged at his alma mater Adelphi University in the winter of 1981. Following Jonathan and David's graduation in 1982, and retitled Saved, an immoral musical on the moral majority, the Brecton-themed musical Cabaret played a 4-week showcase run at Rusty's Storefront Blitz, a small theater on 42nd Street in Manhattan, and won both authors a writing award from ASCAP. Between 1983 and 1990, Larson wrote Superbia, originally intended as a futuristic rock retelling of George Orwell's book 1984, though the Orwell estate denied him permission to adapt the novel itself. Superbia won the Richard Rodgers Production Award and the Richard Rodgers Development Grant. However, despite performances at Playwrights Horizons and a rock concert version produced by Larson's close friend and producer Victoria Leacock at the Village Gate in September 1989, Superbia was not fully produced, leading to disappointment for Larson. His next work, completed in 1991, was a rock monologue entitled 30/90, which was later renamed Boho Days, and finally titled Tick, Tick, Boom. This piece, written for only Larson with a piano and rock band, was intended to be a response to his feelings of rejection caused by the disappointment of Superbia. The show was performed off-Broadway at the Village Gate in Greenwich Village, as well as at the Second Stage Theatre, then on the Upper West Side. Both of these productions were produced by Larson's friend, Victoria Leacock. The producer Jeffrey Sellis saw a reading of Boho Days and expressed interest in producing Larson's musicals. In 1992, Larson collaborated with fellow composer-lyricists Rusty McGee, Bob Golden, Paul Scott Goodman and Jeremy Roberts on Sacred Cows, which was devised and pitched to television networks as a weekly anthology, with each episode taking a different biblical or mythological story and giving it a 90s celebrity twist. The project was shelved due to scheduling conflicts among the 5 composers, but resurfaced over 20 years later in a 6-page Playbill.com article. The demo for Sacred Cows was released on iTunes. While in college, Larson came into contact with his strongest musical theater influence, Stephen Sondheim, to whom he occasionally submitted his work for review. One Tick, Tick, Boom song called Sunday is a homage to Sondheim, who supported Larson, staying close to the melody and lyrics of Sondheim's own song of the same title but turning it from a manifesto about art into a waiter's lament. Sondheim would often write letters of recommendation for Larson to various producers. Larson later won the Stephen Sondheim Award. In addition to his 3 larger theatrical pieces written before Rent, Larson also wrote music for J.P. Morgan Saves the Nation, numerous individual numbers, music for Sesame Street, music for the children's book cassettes of An American Tale and Land Before Time, music for Rolling Stone magazine publisher Jan Wenner, and performed in John Gray's musical Billy Bishop Goes to War, which starred his close friend actor Roger Bart, a musical called Mowgli, and 4 songs for the children's video Away We Go. For his early works, Larson won a grant and award from the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers and the Gilman and Gonzalez Fowler Theatre Foundation's Commendation Award. Rent. Playwright Billy Aronson came up with the idea to write a musical update of La Bohème in 1988. He wanted to create a musical inspired by Giacomo Puccini's La Bohème, in which the luscious splendor of Puccini's world would be replaced with the coarseness and noise of modern New York. In 1989, Aronson called Ira Weitzman with his idea, asking for ideas for collaborators, and Weitzman put Larson together with Aronson to collaborate on the new project. Larson came up with the title and suggested moving the setting from the Upper West Side to downtown, where Larson and his roommates lived in a run-down apartment. For a while, he and his roommates kept an illegal, wood-burning stove due to lack of heat in their building, and he also dated a dancer for 4 years who sometimes left him for other men and eventually left him for a woman. These experiences would influence the autobiographical aspects of Rent. Larson wanted to write about his own experience, and in 1991, he asked Billy if he could use the original concept they collaborated on and make Rent his own. They made an agreement that if the show went to Broadway, Aronson would share in the proceeds. Eventually they decided on setting the musical not in Soho, where Larson lived, but rather in Alphabet City in the East Village. Rent started as a staged reading in 1993 at the New York Theatre Workshop, followed by a studio production that played a 3-week run a year later. However, the version that is now known worldwide, the result of a 3-year-long collaborative and editing process between Larson and the producers and director, was not publicly performed before Larson's death. The show premiered off-Broadway on schedule. Larson's parents gave their blessing to open the show. Due to Larson's death the day before the first preview performance, the cast agreed that they would premiere the show by simply singing it through, all the while sitting at 3 prop tables lined up on stage. But by the time the show got to its high-energy La Vie Bohème, the cast could no longer contain themselves and did the rest of the show as it was meant to be, minus costumes, to the crowd and the Larson family's approval. Once the show was over, there was a long applause followed by silence, which was eventually broken when an audience member shouted out, "Thank you, Jonathan Larson." Rent played through its planned engagement to sold-out crowds and was continuously extended. The decision was finally made to move the show to Broadway, and it opened at the Nederlander Theatre on April 29, 1996. In addition to the New York Theatre Workshop, Rent was and is produced by Jeffrey Seller, who was introduced to Larson's work when attending an off-Broadway performance of Boho Days, and 2 of his producer friends who also wished to support the work, Kevin McCullum and Alan S. Gordon. For his work on Rent, Larson was posthumously awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Drama, the Tony Awards for Best Musical, Best Book of a Musical, and Best Original Score. The Drama Desk Award for Outstanding Book of a Musical, the Drama Desk Award for Outstanding Music, and the Drama Desk Award for Outstanding Lyrics. The New York Drama Critics Circle Award for Best Musical. The Outer Critics Circle Award for Best Musical in the Off-Broadway category. And 3 Obie Awards for Outstanding Book, Outstanding Lyrics and Outstanding Music. Death. Larson died unexpectedly the morning of Rent's first preview performance off-Broadway. He suffered an aortic dissection, believed to have been caused by undiagnosed Marfan syndrome, in the early morning on January 25, 1996. New York State medical investigators concluded that if the aortic dissection had been properly diagnosed and treated, Larson would have lived. He had been suffering chest pains and also had nausea for several days prior to his death, but doctors at Cabrini Medical Center and St. Vincent's Hospital could not find signs of a heart attack and so misdiagnosed it either as flu or stress. Legacy. Rent played on Broadway at the Nederlander Theatre from its debut in April 1996 until it closed on September 7, 2008. It is the 9th longest-running show in Broadway history. In addition, it has toured throughout the United States, Canada, Japan, United Kingdom, Australia, China, Singapore, Mexico, Germany and throughout Europe as well as in other locations. A film version was released in 2005. After his death, Larson's family and friends started the Jonathan Larson Performing Arts Foundation to provide monetary grants to artists, especially musical theatre composers and writers, to support their creative work. The Jonathan Larson grants are now administered by the American Theatre Wing, thanks to an endowment funded by the foundation and the Larson family. Jonathan's work was given to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. In December 2003. The Jonathan Larson Collection is a new addition to its major holdings in the area of musical theatre. The collection documents Larson's surprisingly prolific output, including numerous musicals, revues, cabarets, pop songs, dance and video projects both produced and unproduced. Less than 3 years after Rent closed on Broadway, it was revived off-Broadway at Stage 1 of New World Stages just outside of the theatre district. The show was directed by Michael Grieve, who directed the original productions. The show went into previews on July 14, 2011 and opened August 11, 2011. References. External links: Jonathan Larson at the Internet Broadway Database, Jonathan Larson at the Internet Off-Broadway Database.